welcome back to another episode of Thirdcoastreptile right here on YouTube. I got two questions for you guys. Number one, are you in the market for buying a tortoise? Number two, do you live in an apartment? Well, this is the video for you guys. I'm going to be giving you my top 3 tortoises for apartment living. They're perfect for it. And also, guys, there's a 4th tortoise here at the end of the video that is my personal favorite that will work great for apartment living. Oh, and don't forget we're going to be doing under the show segment where I answer one of your questions right here on Thirdcoastreptile. Alright guys, so number 1 on our list, we're going to be talking about the 3rd smallest tortoise species, the Russian tortoise. In fact guys, this is the only tortoise that has gone to outer space. Crazy, right? We sent a tortoise. Actually, the Soviets in the 60s sent Russian tortoises around the moon and back that was part of the race to the moon in the 60s that we were dealing with. But nevertheless, for apartments, for small spaces, the Russian tortoise is excellent. They're a hardy tortoise. They're really good for first-time tortoise owners. They're a dry grassland desert species tortoise, so their diet's pretty simple. They don't require a lot of space. Guys, these guys only get 5 to 10 inches in length, full grown. Now, they don't require a buddy. They can live on their own, and that means that your tortoise table can be like a 4-foot by 8-foot enclosure. That's pretty good in most spaces. If you want to get away with something maybe a little bit more narrow and longer, that's fine. But the rule of thumb here, guys, is like a 4x8 table is perfect for Russian tortoise. Now, in my Redfoot room, I have my Russian tortoise in a 2-foot by 10-foot enclosure. The length is important here because you're sacrificing the width. But for apartment dwellings, you guys can get creative. You can make multi-layer, L shapes, whatever. But the point is that Russian tortoises are amazing. They're great tortoises. They're super hardy. And, you know, they're the 3rd smallest tortoise species in the world. So that means that they're excellent for apartments or just small spaces in general. And being as hard as they are, that's why they're on this list. They're not a rare tortoise species. So the Russian tortoise, in my opinion, is probably one of the most underrated tortoise species there are. Let's move on to number 2. Number 2 on our list here is the Greek tortoise. The Greek tortoise is so awesome that I'm going to be doing an entire video just about the Greek tortoise. Do you know why? Because there are 12 subspecies of the Greek tortoise. There's so many different types of them, and they're all unique in their own way. It's its own video worthy. But for this video, for your apartment, for your small space, the Greek tortoise is awesome. They get anywhere from 5 to 11 inches in length. They get a little bit bigger. These guys are like the dry scrubland, similar grassland species diet. They're from the Mediterranean area, so parts of like coastal northern Africa. They're a great tortoise, and it doesn't matter what subspecies you get. They're really hardy. They're excellent tortoises. Now, you do have to deal with hibernation with these guys, or brumation rather, which is something you wouldn't deal with the Russian tortoise. But for a great species for an apartment or a small space, these guys are very happy in a 4x8 enclosure all by themselves. In fact, my Greek tortoise right now is in a 60-gallon Rubbermaid tub, which is perfect for him. I think he may get into a bigger space later on, but for right now, it's perfect. Guys, these do live a little bit longer than the Russian tortoise. They can live up to 125 years. So you may be thinking about passing this along to a next of kin type thing, you know, which is reality with tortoises anyway. But for apartments, for small spaces, you can't beat the Greek tortoise. And again, I'll be doing a video because there are 12 different types of subspecies of Greek tortoise. I can't wait to get into that one, but let's move on to number 3. Alright guys, coming in at the largest tortoise of this list, the last one on this list is the Hermans Tortoise. Hermans tortoises are excellent, guys. They're defined into 2 subspecies. So you have an Eastern Hermans and a Western Hermans. The Eastern Hermans is more common in the pet trades, probably one you'll find at any big box store, versus like Western Hermans you probably have to find a specific breeder for. Now you can tell the difference between the two because of the brightness in colors. They still have the same pattern. Westerns tend to have a little bit darker colors where the Eastern is a little bit more lighter. They consist of like a gold and dark color combination, which is a really cool pattern on their shells. And they are awesome. They are great because they can live in apartments, they can live in small areas because they can fit on a 4x8 table just fine. They're very happy being alone, so you don't need to have 2 of them together. I think they're great. They're amazing. So much so that, guys, that I'm looking at getting an Eastern for myself here in the near future. Now, when it comes to their hardiness, they're very hardy. When it comes to their lifespan, it's about 75 years. When it comes to their diet, they are, again, a more dry, arid, grassland, dry forest type species. So a grassland diet would be suitable for them, which is common between all 3 tortoises on this list. And again, you don't have to worry so much about humidity because they are a dry, arid species tortoise, much like the other ones on this list. So it kind of makes me think that like the smaller subspecies tortoises like these are going to be more your dry, arid grassland species. Your mid-sized tortoises are more of your rainforest, dark leafy green, broadleaf type diet tortoises. So that is our list here, guys. I hope you enjoyed this part of the video, but I want you to stick around after the Under the Shell segment because I have yet a 4th tortoise species that will have something really cool in your apartment or small space that is not the normal looking tortoise. This is something a little bit more out there, a little bit more cool, if you will, and you're going to have to check that out here right after the Under the Shell segment where I answer one of your questions. Alright guys, for today's Under the Shell segment, we are going to answer a question from Lizzie Ellis 9268, and she asks, possibly a question for a future video, what enrichment can you offer a tortoise that is not food related? That's not focused around food. Great question. So when it comes to enrichment, right, you're enriching the environment. It's for entertainment, it's for thinking, it's for getting their brains motivated throughout the day. It's not the same benign, boring box that you put them in. So for enrichment ideas, it could be something as simple as adding a hill, adding sight barriers. I'm an advocate for sight barriers. So putting like large branches that they have to walk around to see what's on the other side of that branch is an enrichment idea that has nothing to do with food, but more of curiosity. And then, you know, I know people say you shouldn't change up enclosures because it stresses them out. I feel the exact opposite of that. I think you guys should change your enclosures up to give them sort of enrichment. Now, use the same stuff that you had in there before so the smells are very familiar to your tortoise so that way they don't get too stressed out. But changing where things are at, maybe moving the water dish. Another idea that could be really simple is taking their hide and burying it in the ground to create a hill to climb over that. With that sort of feature, they're not exactly worried about tumbling over as much and having a fall event where they just gradually climb up and over a hill. And that'll help them strengthen their legs. You can add some rocks in some areas to help sharpen the nails. There's a lot of imagination that can go into building an enclosure, and it shouldn't be as simple as a box because you need enrichment ideas. You need things for your tortoise to feel, entertained when they're in their enclosure and they're exploring it and checking things out, and give them gradient factors like heat and hot and cold side, or a more humid and more dry area, and let them regulate where they want to be based on those parameters. Other enrichment ideas may be something as simple as adding a different type of substrate in the enclosure. Maybe you go from coco coir to dirt in a couple areas, and that'll have them kind of digging through that stuff too. If you have a burrower, you can create different kind of tunnel systems in your enclosure as well for them to crawl through. Safety is an importance here when you guys are doing this type of stuff, and also make sure that your tortoise is not going to get overly stressed out. You can tell when a tortoise gets stressed out because they'll stop eating, they'll stop moving around. Also check for illness in that situation. But great question. Thank you guys. If you want your question answered here on Under the Shell, you can do so in 3 ways. Number 1, first and foremost, you can get your answer right here on this video. Number 2, you can go to the YouTube Thirdcoastreptile community chat and ask your question there, or simply go to Thirdcoastreptile at Facebook to do your question and get it answered right here on Under the Shell. Alright guys, it's time. I'm going to show you guys the coolest tortoise on this list that's suitable for both apartments and small spaces alike. They do really well in a 4x8 area. I'm talking about the Pancake Tortoise. And the reason why we're here in the Redfoot room is I have them here, and I'm going to show you just what they look like. Now this little guy's eating, so I don't want to disturb him too long. But this is what a pancake tortoise looks like. And you notice how he's not very dome-shaped? That's because as adults, they don't get that way. They stay very flat, which is why they're such a weird-looking tortoise. The cool thing about these guys is that they live in rock outcrops. So they'll have these like stacked up rocks and these little crevices that they wedge themselves in. And the reason why they actually wedge themselves, so what they'll do is they'll go into this rock area, they'll inflate themselves a little bit. Their carapace and plastron are actually a little bit pliable, so they can inflate themselves and wedge themselves in between these rock spots. They do this as a defense mechanism against predators. So these guys are amazing. They're from Kenya and Zambia, like those areas. They're kind of a drier grassland species, of course. I have them here in the Redfoot room temporarily. They're going to be moved out to the living room eventually in a more suitable, drier area for them because it's really humid in here. But as hatchlings, they require a little bit more humidity, so this is just fine for them. Great for apartments, great for small areas. The Pancake Tortoise is amazing. Guys, if you made it this far, I want to talk to you about something else that's really cool. You have an opportunity here. Say you live in an apartment and it's against the rules at your apartment complex, or parents say no, you can't have a tortoise at home. It's understandable. They're just trying to be responsible parents. There's another way you can contribute to the reptile hobby, support the channel here, and that is sponsoring one of these animal enclosures, including the Pancake Tortoise enclosure. And you can do so by donating $25, and that will help sponsor that animal for the month. You'll get your name right here on the plaque, the month that you did it for, and at the end of the month you're going to get this plaque back, along with a thank you card, of course. And then while that tortoise enclosure is sponsored for the month, I'm going to give you guys a shout out here on the YouTube channel and tell everybody that you guys sponsored a very cool tortoise like this Pancake Tortoise enclosure right here. Alright guys, that wraps it up for us here. I hope you guys found some really cool options for your apartment or small space. Until next time guys, bye now.